styrofoam. Got some handy? Good. Today's tutorial is how to create tombstones from foam. Are you ready? There are so many things that you could do with your tombstone. I'm going to be using the flat side. As you can see, this is the impression side that was against the appliance. But using a permanent magic marker today, I'm going to be creating top of the tombstone just with my hand. Do you see how nicely I did that? Yeah, exactly. And we're going to cut this out to size. And you could do so many things with this. Now there are tombstones that are just square like this. Some of them have a little lamb on top of them. Some of them have crosses. But in this case, I like something that looks more like my home back in New England. And if you've ever been to Salem, Massachusetts, you know that some of the most beautiful tombstones are there around that area. Okay, so here we are. Let's cut this out. Today, using an Echo blade, be very, very, very careful and cut out your stone. This part is very important. You can add some bits of chisel marks to your stone by taking off pieces and leaving them rough. Not every stone was perfectly smooth. A lot of them were taken from quarries, hand chiseled out. So we want to have some areas that look like they were cut. It's looking good. Once you get it down to this stage, it should start looking like this. Pieces are missing. I also took a little bit of the edge off with my knife. All right, let's go on. Next part of our tutorial now is to map out an edge for where we want stuff to be carved into the stone. A lot of the stones had a very, very decorative motif on them, and you can actually check a lot of the symbolism to see which symbols that you want to put on your stone. Once you get that, you can start cutting away a little bit of the foam now to create grooves and creating shape within the stone. Element we can now add to our tombstone to make it really cool are these. These are raised letters and numbers. For just a couple dollars, go down and find yourself a couple packs of them at your dollar store, and we're going to apply these onto our tombstone. The back has a magnetic strip on it, so it goes on a refrigerator, but we're not going to be using it for that purpose. We're going to be using it to create that awesome effect we want for our prop. So now that we got this and this, let's do it. And before going into that, I would highly suggest roughing out the area that you will be recessing, because that is going to give you a little bit of leeway as to which parts are going to be lower and which parts are going to be raised. This is a very easy project, and you can make multiple of these stones for your Halloween display very quickly. Check this out. We have all the recessed areas after we had cut them out. The letters fit in there very nicely. Now if you got a place that's a little bit too deep where you cut a little bit too much in there, you could always use a little bit of air dried clay. And the brand that I highly recommend is called Amos. You can stick it in there. Any color will do because you're going to paint over it. But I like the rough texture. Don't be afraid to make some cracks and mistakes and some gullies and some other stuff like that. You ever seen a perfectly made tombstone from 100 years ago? Well, neither have I. So basically, now we're going to just hot glue these letters down appropriately, and our letters and numbers will be in place, and then we're going to go on to the next step. So let's do that now. Hot glue time. Now once you get all your letters, in there and hot glued down. Make sure you unplug your hot glue gun, and we'll be letting this cool. We'll be going into the next segment of our cemetery stone prop making here, and we'll be needing some tissue paper. I can hear someone saying, why don't you just paint the stone? Well, no, we want to use tissue paper to smooth all this out and create a very smooth look to the stone. We've put the recessed letters down and we'll be working around them, but we want to get rid of all of this styrofoam area in here. That's going to make a big difference in our work. Next part of our tutorial, you're going to need some water-soluble glue, and some tissue paper, possibly a great pair of scissors, be careful, they're sharp, and a nice soft but firm brush we're going to use to tamp our tissue paper into our stone. Are you ready? Let's do this. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a bit of our tissue paper and going over some of the areas of our stone. It doesn't take very long to do this. Oop. You just want to get this nice and sopped up. Once you get that tissue paper glued, and it's going to bleed a little bit, so don't be surprised. Your hands will probably get stained too, but put that right down like this. Okay, we're going to keep building on this, just one layer over all of our stone. So let's do that now. The other important thing is that you don't really need to do the recessed areas unless you really want to. However, getting around these raised letters will be very difficult. So we're going to be doing here, here, and in the grooves. We are in the home stretch right now. Check this out. And basically, this is the most difficult part of the whole entire tutorial, laying that first one layer of tissue paper down. Now what it does is it seals out all of the styrofoam and it creates that corroded, aged limestone effect that we want. These double layers of tissue paper that I put over here, they make lines, they make cracks. It looks great. So once this gets dried, we're going to paint this. Let's see what this looks like afterwards. Now, once the tissue paper is completely dry, we can mix up our stone colors. Now, I must add something very important to this about it, is that if you don't have tissue paper, you can't, this is a hack on this one, you can actually use a fast food restaurant chain's napkins if they're nice and smooth. You can use that instead of tissue paper. Okay, let's mix up a color now for our stone. Now for the stone coloration, we are using for our lineup today acrylic number 901 titanium white, a 999 black, and a 995 silver, just the top of it. And we're going to be mixing this together. I'm using about 50% white, and we're going to put our darkest color into our lightest color and see if we can create a stone tone that we would like. Now don't be afraid to go lighter because you can always add on top of that. And working in a bit of our silver for a bit of reflective value makes a big difference when you create stone. You can also add the silver as a layer. Right about there. That looks like New England granite color to me. Color stone that I've seen all throughout my childhood. Right there. Okay, so let's paint our stone. When you first begin painting your stone, don't be afraid to lather it up. Don't be afraid. You got to coat all the sides. You got to coat everything. So that is principal job number one. The tissue paper makes it easy of this so well. It's a very easy project to make. So let's paint this down and see what all of this looks like when it's finished. It's going to take a little while, but it's worth it. Back in the prop shop today. Once your tombstone is dried, it should look like this, and we are going to start the aging process, which to me is the most awesomest and most fascinating part of being a prop maker. Okay, so let's start making up some slurries and go into it. Are you ready? Let's go. And today we'll be using acrylic colors number 999 black, a number 925 burnt umber, a titanium white number 901, and olive green number 955. And this color is a little bit hard to find, but you can always mix it and go out and find the worst brush that you can find. This is nothing more than a 99-cent or a dollar store one-time use bristled brush and a little tub of water and your palette. So let's mix this up and put the first layer on our stone. So I am mixing quite a bit of water into this. I've got about 75% black out there. I want to work my greens in there and my browns. That is a pretty heavy. I like the reds of the burnt umber. I like the greens for that moss texture. And then, whoa, there it is. Once we get that color made, we've got the perfect color that we're going to add now to our layer of stone. Okay, I am going to be using quite a bit of water now with our, application here. I just want to slap a little bit of this on. We're going to be doing reduction in a moment here. Very, very easy way to create a tombstone. With a little bit of soft paper towel, you can actually water that up a little bit. You can do reduction. Love it. Now I'm going to get that color right in the groove of our stone here. I want to make sure that stands out. And I also want to make sure I get that color into our areas of lettering and numbering. I want to let that set up quite nicely. So let me finish this, and I'll show you what it looks like when we finish. Once you get your color palette set up just right, now let this dry, and we'll go on to the second coat. Now, once your stone is dry, it should look like this. Let's go on to the next layer. We're going to be adding that lichen type of aged outdooriness to it. So let's mix up our next color palette. Are you ready? If you see my other tutorials on how to make miniature caskets and stuff, you've noticed that I had used blues and greens when I had corroded the wood. However, in this case, we're going to be going back into our olive green number 955 and a burnt umber number 925, which is our previous colors, and we're going to be using two brushes today. I'm going to be using that nasty brush again, and a brush that's a little bit more softer to create kind of a mold texture. Now on that, a little tub of water over here, and our colors. So let's mix this up, and it's more green than it is burnt umber in this section. So I will mix this and show you what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to be taking my nasty brush and going into my water and making a slurry of that great algae green color. I love this. And a little bit of the burnt umber. I love that. It's just perfect. I love this right there. It's got that nice, oh man, perfect. Okay, now let's do this, and let's put this color now on our stone. I'm also using a small rag over here if I need to do a crumpling or a faux effect of moss. Okay, so let's modify our stone right now. Okay, so application is a little bit different with this technique. You can actually wet your brush over here. You can go into your color, and I can actually show you how you can add sections of moss or algae that's been outside. And whether we don't want to go overboard with this, we just want to do a little bit here and there. I'd say a little bit more algae had formed. Now I'm going to go a little bit darker in here with our burnt umber. I'm going to tap that down just a little bit, like that. A little bit more brown. There's a calming effect when I make props like this. I feel so relaxed. No, still not there. I should go back in the red. Yeah, there we go. And I'm definitely going to put a bit of that algae green in the groove. Just enough. And then on the sides, well, maybe the weather had kept it outside there. Okay, working that in nicely. Wow. Especially underneath. That's probably a little bit too much over here. Take that out. Okay. Once we get that to about right, yeah, put some more down here. Okay, that's looking cool. Okay, let's let this dry. Once that dry, it should look like that. I love it. It's so great. So now it's going to be the final coat we're going to put on this. Again, we're going to be using our black 999. I just put a little bit on here, and I'm also using that ratty brush that we had, and I've got my little container of water over here. We want to create a slurry of putting on here like this. Pretty intense slurry. I'd probably say about 3 parts water to 1 part black. We want to apply to the stone as our final darkening. And once you put this on here, let it just gravitate into the crevices. We're going to put a fair amount here under our letters. Don't be afraid to put that in there. Okay, the darkening agent, this is everything you wanted it to be. Smoke and stuff outside, pollutions and contaminants and stuff like that. We're going to apply this to the whole entire stone. We're going to let this dry, and we're going to see what it looks like when it's finished. Gothically yours, Professor M.